Right, well, welcome everybody. It's really good to see so many of you here at what is really the first stage of taking you through some of the changes that are happening at Seafarers UK. Before we crack on, just a few points to remind you of, but they're fairly common ones when you attend a webinar. Please remain on mute throughout. If you're not on mute at the moment, you'll find it at the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. If you click on that, you'll put yourself on mute. This session is being recorded. We aim to end at 11 o'clock, but we have allowed an extra 15 minutes in timings. For questions, use the chat function, which you'll also find at the bottom of the screen, just above your keyboard in the middle. You can put your questions in that, and those will be answered at the question and answer session at the end. If somebody has asked a question you particularly like and you want it answered, you can upvote it. And we will follow up with a feedback evaluation via SurveyMonkey and answers to and Q&As. So on the agenda today, I'll be talking about our new strategy, which amongst the work we've been doing on COVID, we've spent 2020 developing. And then we will move on to the new grant funding strategy, which forms part of our overall organisational strategy. Deborah Lade, our impact director, will take you through that. The strategic outcomes we want to achieve for Seafarers will be taken through, Tina Barnes will take you through that. She is our head of impact, which is a new post at Seafarers UK, and indeed part of our strategic change. And then we'll also look at the due diligence and governance, and that will be Deborah Lade again, our impact director. And then our thanks to Peter Buxton, our Chair of Grants Committee, or Chair of Impact Committee, as I think we're now calling it, who will be taking us through our questions and answers. Thank you. Thanks, Tina, if you could move on. So we have spent a lot of time working through what should Seafarers UK look like in the future, and thank you to everybody who's been involved in that process. It hasn't just been an internal process, it's been incredibly wide-ranging in terms of who's been involved in it and who we've got information from. But what we wanted to do was understand, of course, how we can serve seafarers better and use with our maritime charity partners in the maritime charity welfare sector. We want to explore what more we can do working with you to stop seafarers experiencing hardship, and to use one of my much overused phrases, which I'm sure Deborah and Tina will groan at when I pull it out, which is that I really believe that all charities should be working to make themselves redundant. So we're extremely grateful to our delivery partners, many of whom we have been working with since our inception in 1917, and we absolutely expect to continue working with existing partners and, where necessary, form new partnerships to explore new ways of working. So I really want to put your mind at rest before we move on to the meat, because there isn't an intention to move away from partnerships we have. So why have we done this? Well, we really recognised that we needed to tell the story of what we do and how we help people much better. We needed to be more focused and be able to explain what we achieve better, not only to you, the maritime welfare charity sector, but also for seafarers and, of course, to our potential donors and our existing donors. So our strategy was twofold: to increase the impact of our grants programme, because we know that we can do better, and to combine it with advocacy and research. And that really recognises that not all solutions to the challenges facing seafarers can be solved financially. There's also more we could do to understand those problems and then advocate on their behalf. And secondly, we want to explain better what we do. So by demonstrating more impact, by more clearly showing what we're achieving, we will increase our fundraising. Like many of you who are fundraisers, you will know how incredibly tough it is out there. And we recognise that we really need to do better at that. And importantly, so we can keep supporting you and keep supporting the sector in the future. Thanks, Tina. So I talked about, said thank you very much to those of you that were involved in the work we did on the strategy. And it was a really lengthy process to understand how we need to change to make more impact for seafarers. We did a wide range of activities, some of which are listed here. We started off with the classic SWOT to understand our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats. Our colleagues were very helpful and really interested in helping to develop our organisational values, which will guide the way we work. We, of course, want to be an ethical and fair organisation. And then thank you for everybody that provided feedback on the DSC Understanding Perspective Stakeholder Research. Where we asked you what you thought we should be doing, what did you want from Seafarers UK? And there were some fantastic answers back, some really good commentary. 100% agreed that Seafarers UK has an important role to play in enhancing and strengthening the maritime charities sector so that it can respond to the existing and emerging needs of seafarers. 100% agreed that Seafarers UK is a good conduit and connector that can help join up different parts of the maritime sector. And 100% of long-term delivery partners and new delivery partners agreed or strongly agreed that Seafarers UK has an important role to play in enhancing and strengthening the maritime welfare charity sector, so it can respond to the existing and emerging needs of seafarers. So big expectations and a lot to include in our strategy. We also did a theory of change. For those of you, some of you will be familiar with the concept of theory of change, but in its basic form, it's mapping out what problems you're trying to solve and working backwards to determine what activities and outcomes you need to achieve to get to that change. And finally, we did a really interesting exercise on scenario planning just before COVID, so it might have looked slightly different now, but still incredibly useful in understanding the maritime welfare sector. And again, we had trustees, colleagues, and external stakeholders, so some really useful, interesting discussion, including commentary from Nautilus as well to understand their perspectives. So yeah, lots of different things used to develop our strategy. So of course, there are going to be changes at Seafarers UK. You will have seen some of those already. You're probably aware that the grants team is now called the Impact team. And there have been some changes in communications and fundraising, which is now called the development team. And that's down to us recognising that we needed to invest and bring in more better fundraising experience into our development team and really focus on fundraising. We have redirected resources to the Impact team, so they are now a slightly bigger team, only slightly, but our staff costs remain the same. We have been really cautious to make sure we're using our money wisely by reviewing who does what and making sure we're getting value for money. So the result of this work is a thoroughly thought through strategic plan with key focus areas, which I'll run through in a minute. And whilst I absolutely want to reassure you that we intend continuing to work with many of the partners that we've worked with over many years, this is a fundamental change to the way in which we support the sector, and it's a real change to Seafarers UK as well. So with our strategic plan and those key focus areas, we've developed our first ever implementation plan with really clear workflows of who is doing what. And we are really going to be strict in terms of monitoring ourselves as well, monitoring that implementation plan. And we also now have key performance indicators, which we will be reporting to Seafarers UK's General Counsel. So it's a really ambitious programme of work. We want to deliver more for seafarers. We look forward to working with you and your colleagues on it, and we hope that you'll come on that journey with us. And I'll just run through those key themes or the outcomes that we want to achieve. So this is really defining what areas we work in and working out what activities and how we want to achieve these focuses, which are financial resilience, health and well-being, better working lives, social justice, and safety standards and practices. And all of those have been incorporated into our grants funding strategy. And I really must thank Deborah and Tina, who have done a superb job in analysing the grants sector and have worked so incredibly hard on not only their own grant strategy, but the organisational strategy as well, to really shape Seafarers UK into a good place where we can, together with you, achieve more for seafarers. So it gives me really great pleasure to introduce Deborah Lade, who is our Impact Director and works tirelessly to make sure we are doing the right thing for seafarers.
Thank you very much, Cathy, and welcome to everyone here. I just want to talk a little bit more about our strategy and how we got here. It was really important to us as a grant funder. Our primary aim as a charity is to be, as a grant funder. And so we commissioned some research back in 2017 because we wanted to understand from you guys what you needed from us as a funder. We wanted to get the good, the bad and the ugly, and we needed honesty, and for that we needed separation. And so therefore we did commission the Directorate of Social Change, who undertook and analysed the survey and also controlled the focus groups. So the findings were really good and have actually been a major part in terms of developing this strategy as well. So our research aim in 2017 was to understand what we did well, where we needed to improve, and what ideas you had for our future strategy. And we had a fantastic 85% completion rate and a really strong turnout to the focus groups as well. So what did you tell us? You told us vitally 69% of respondents said that they could not maintain their services without our grant funding. 31% said that our funding was actually an important secondary source of income. You also told us that core funding was and is vital to you. You said that our grant making process was considered effective and that we were seen to be a proactive and engaged funder with great commitment to the sector. However, you also told us you wish for greater clarity on our future strategy and that you welcomed a more active role from us in promoting research and also sharing data and services and information on the maritime community. You also believed that we should invest in advocacy and campaigning and promotions of issues relevant to seafarers. So all of these have been wrapped up now, as you've seen, into the strategic organisation that we're endeavouring to become. In 2020, at the very beginning of 2020, just as the pandemic started to hit, we actually put out another survey, which again, thank you to all of you for to most of you for completing. This confirmed that all of you continue to believe we play an integral part in supporting the maritime welfare sector. Can I have the next slide, please? Furthermore, many delivery partners, 59% of long-term and 76.9% of new delivery partners see our funding as an endorsement that encourages and attracts further funding opportunities. Of course, all of this leads up to greater responsibility. We are the largest funder of maritime welfare services in the UK, and up until 2017, we were consistently funding over 2.5 million per annum. Last year, we funded 3.5 million, which obviously includes our COVID emergency fund. And our main grant programme continues to provide core funding, including vital staff posts as well. Internationally, our funding is becoming more diverse as we collaborate more closely with delivery partners and key international maritime welfare funders. Why? We simply wish to see quality welfare services so that seafarers thrive. Next slide, please. So the DSE research enabled us to move forward with confidence, knowing your needs and wishes for us as a funder. Our purpose is simple: to support a broad range of maritime welfare charities and organisations to deliver a wide range of interventions and services to support seafarers and their families during times of need. Our primary aim is for seafarers to thrive, not just survive. Our grants programme now puts seafarer need at the heart of our funding to provide access to high quality welfare services and a safe working environment at sea. We provide grant funding for charity partners to deliver services for seafarers and their families, and within our funding programme we promote efficiency, encourage collaboration and aim to avoid duplication of services. We aim to create positive solutions to empower seafarers. Next slide, please. Our strategic goals for our grants are outlined on the slides there. To achieve better outcomes and greater impact, to inspire continuous improvement in standards, governance and ability, to develop more opportunities for partnerships, and to become a proactive grant funder. Next slide, please. So what does this all mean for you? Firstly, we feel that the DSC research clearly demonstrated that your simple but vital need to have funds to support core costs. So we're absolutely continuing to do that because we believe this enables you to broaden your funding with other funders who may wish, for example, to fund projects only. However, we can't do everything all of the time. We realise that, and we realised we needed to focus. So as of last April, we started to wind down our funding of maritime careers awareness and STEM. We recognise that employers' responsibilities and also government responsibilities would help fund in those areas, and also noted that many of our maritime welfare funders also funded in that area. So after doing this gap analysis, this is where we've decided to stop. However, this area of funding is continuing at the moment in terms of some of the grants we've already committed to, but we won't be providing any new grants in this area. Furthermore, we will be reviewing our strategy, which will be reviewed every 4 years. So we're next reviewing in 2014. So what do we wish to start doing? We wish to be more proactive. So please come to us with your ideas for potential partnerships. We wish to see collaborative work on new solutions and achieving efficiencies for seafarers across the sector. And of course, impact. We have to be impact focused. It's needed to ensure the very best quality responsive services for seafarers. You've heard our 5 key strategic outcomes. These will be addressed by Tina Barnes, Head of Impact, shortly. Finally, and of key importance to us as a grant funder, we aspire to continually encourage increasing standards. We have a key charitable object that specifically addresses the promotion of efficiency and effectiveness of the whole sector. And one of the ways we can influence this is via governance and due diligence. More on governance and what this means for you in our next grant application to us later. But now I'm going to hand over to Tina Barnes, Head of Impact, who will talk you through our strategic outcomes for seafarers. Thank you, Tina.
Thanks, Deborah, and hello, everyone. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about our new 5 strategic outcomes and what that means to you when you next make a grant application to us. The reason why we're looking at these outcomes is because, you know, it's central to what we do as a funder. Why do we provide over £2 million worth of funding each year for maritime welfare? Well, it's because we want to make a difference. We want to change things for seafarers. And this approach really enables us to focus on what we're trying to change. And you'll see here that in our grant strategy, we've converted our themes and our focus into outcomes for seafarers. So what we're looking at is enhancing the financial resilience of seafarers, improving their health and well-being, in helping them to have better working lives, increasing social justice, and raising safety standards and practice. And through concentrating our funding into these areas, we hope that together collectively, we will all be achieving greater impact for seafarers in these areas. You will find that when you next complete a monitoring and evaluation report, you will be reporting on how your work has contributed in these areas. Now, let me just say, you know, we are fairly certain that these themes, these outcomes, fit the majority of the organisations that we've previously funded and we will continue to fund in the future. These are, you know, areas which, you know, we think are central and important to our work and to making a difference to the working lives of seafarers and those who are retired from a seafaring career. So let's look a little bit more at what this actually means to you and for you. And you'll see some famous names, some familiar names, you know, on these slides. And, you know, these are the organisations that we think their core work, their main purpose, really aligns with these particular outcomes. Now, it may be that, say, for example, a fisherman's mission want to focus on a specific project, such as their previous Get Sea Fit health and wellbeing project, then our funding for that would more likely come under our health and wellbeing outcome. So individual initiatives and projects may be different, but given for the majority we are funding core costs, your primary purpose will come under these main outcomes. If you don't think so, we're happy to have a conversation with you, but at the moment, this is how we think it fits. So in terms of the enhanced financial resilience, how is financial resilience delivered? Typically, it's delivered through individual grants to people who experience hardship or in need. It's delivered through giving information and advice on welfare benefits, debt, housing, employment contracts as well. And you can see, you know, Seafarer Help, for example, delivered by ICE1, is one example of that, giving advice on employment contracts. Seafarers Advice, giving information on debt, welfare benefits. And then we've got others such as Sailors Children's Society, Shipwrecked Mariners, and Fisherman's Mission, who are providing financial support for seafarers. On the Better Working Lives at Sea outcome, clearly this is much more focused on active seafarers, those who are still working. And typically it involves those charities that are involved in delivering virtual and port-based welfare services to seafarers. So again, you can see some big names there, such as Mission to Seafarers, Stella Maris, Merchant Navy Welfare Board, who most of you will be familiar with, for their ship visiting seafarer centres that they provide. We've also collaborated with Merchant Navy Welfare Board in providing vehicles and MiFi units to a lot of the port-based welfare services providers that are out there. A couple of these that you may be less familiar with include Fathom, which is a podcast for commercial fishermen. And at the bottom logo, we have our fishing animation project, which is helping commercial fishermen access business support. So I hope that helps you to understand how we see the range of organisations who are delivering great outcomes to achieve better working lives at sea. On social justice, we have a little bit of work to do in this area, really. And, you know, that work may be through us providing grants for you to deliver advocacy and campaigns. It may be for you to provide grants. There's a range of different things we can do in this area, and we're absolutely up for exploring what the potential is and what the possibilities are. And you'll see under here, we've listed some of the issues that we think would fit in this category. There may be others, and we're very happy to explore with you what those social justice issues might be that you may wish to tackle. In terms of raising safety standards and practices, we already fund two significant, strategic and impressive initiatives in this area. There's CHIRP Maritime, which is a confidential hazards incident reporting programme in which people can confidentially report hazardous, unsafe practices, etc. And there's also the safety folder, which provides an online safety management system for over 1,000 commercial fishermen in the UK today. So both of those are UK-wide brilliant initiatives which you know, do a lot to help increase safety standards. The gentleman in the corner, his name is Clive Palfrey, and you can see by the boat numbers behind him, the vessel numbers behind him, that he's based in Cornwall, down in Penzance. And Clive Palfrey is actually a safety advisor, a safety champion. He goes on board vessels and advises people about safety practices and risk management assessments. And, you know, we're kind of thinking it might be great to have a lot of Clive Palfreys around the coast, helping fishermen improve their safety practices. And that's something that we could explore further. So, you know, just to say, you know, we're absolutely up to exploring your ideas about what we can do more in these areas. But these are some of the initiatives that we currently fund. Health and well-being is an interesting outcome for us. Because actually when we looked at what we do in this area, it's a little bit patchy really, and you know, not as strategic and accessible UK-wide for all seafarers as we might like it to be. So there's definitely some more work that we could do in this area, and we'd be really interested in hearing your ideas about health and well-being initiatives and potential projects for seafarers. And you can see here that we've split our interest in this area into active seafarers and retired seafarers, in a recognition that there are differences in the needs that are the needs of active seafarers and needs of retired seafarers. We have the we currently fund the relationship counselling programme, which is accessible to all seafarers, and anyone that we fund can make a referral to Relate. And in addition, seafarers themselves can contact Seafarers Advice and Information Line to make a self-referral as well. But some of the other activities in here, the Not Forgotten Association, the Silver Line, both of those do a great job for older seafarers who are feeling lonely, isolated, whereas Nautilus obviously are doing a great job taking care of the retired seafarers at Mariners Park, as well as having a welfare casework service as well. Okay, so looking a bit more at our health and wellbeing strategy, we're currently looking very much at the physical health of seafarers, in recognition that actually working at sea can cause some physical differences and impacts, which, you know, us who work in an office and sit behind a desk most of the day don't have quite the same exposure to. So those sorts of musculoskeletal issues, pains and aches, just simply accessing care is also another issue. Skin cancer, you know, as you know, and obviously things like burst appendix are being quite an extreme emergency issue, which we can't plan for, but you know, is often the area in which, you know, emergency care is needed. So if you have ideas about what more we could be doing in the area of health and well-being, particularly in relation to physical health, we'd be very interested to hear from you. So that's all I have to say about outcomes. You know, we're happy to talk with you more about this, answer more of your questions on the subject of outcomes, but we think by focusing our funding in those areas, we're going to help to achieve better outcomes for seafarers together with you. Okay. So I'm now handing over to Deborah Lade, our Impact Director, to talk to you about due diligence and governance. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. Due diligence and governance, necessary, absolutely necessary and vital. As a grant funder, we have obviously responsibilities to fulfil, not least to ensure that we follow Charity Commission guidance on grant funding. We have particular guidance that we have to fulfil as part of our work, being a direct grant funder of organisations. We also have to ensure, obviously, that we present a full assessment of the grant applications you submit to enable our trustees to ensure that all of our funds are wisely spent. We endeavour that our grant assessment of your application is holistic. Our due diligence looks at your performance as a charity, and this is even more important, of course, when we're funding core costs. It's your governance, your policies, your processes, etc., that enable you to safely and successfully deliver services to seafarers, and that's why we're looking at these aspects. We look at a variety of aspects, such as those listed on the slide, and of course we also do a full financial assessment of your organisation. We've got responsibilities, obviously, to our founder funders and to those who have funded or left us generous legacies since our formation in 1917. When we assess your application and those of others, we see good practice, we see trends in needs, and we see services to address these needs, and we like to compare and contrast. It all makes for a stronger grant assessment. And we also look to the sector and industry leaders, and of course we benchmark against the wider charity sector, and we have much to draw on and be inspired by in the maritime welfare sector. Next slide, please. Governance matters, of course, and for so many reasons, and not just for you. We've held a mirror up to ourselves too. We need to be the best that we can be for you, and we recognise we have more to do. Continuous improvement is what we strive for, and our trustees support this wholeheartedly. To this end, last year we undertook an external governance review, and this work is ongoing and positively moving forward. Also in 2020, we awarded our first governance grant to a delivery partner. This enabled an external and independent governance review for that organisation as well. And in the future, we'd like to do more to be able to support you in your own governance by providing grants to enable you to take an external view of your governance. Why are we doing this? We're doing this because one of our main charitable objects is to promote and support the efficiency and effectiveness of the sector. So do please ask us about this. I'm still on the slide actually, sorry Tina, it doesn't. Our updated online application now asks for more information to enable us to improve due diligence on your organisation as well. Some are perhaps obvious. What date was your organisation strategy last reviewed? But some not so obvious. For example, now we're asking you to tell us about your terms of office of trustees and your period of tenure for your chair, for example. Why? Because terms of office offer an opportunity for organisations to evolve through diversity. Diversity is vital to strong governance and high-performing teams. You'll all know the global management consultants, McKinsey and others, for example, and they've clearly demonstrated time and time again via research that relationships between diversity on executive teams and the likelihood of financial outperformance are strengthened over time. Companies in the top quartile for gender diversity on executive teams were 21% more likely to outperform on profitability. And of course, this directly translates into the charitable sector too. And charities in the UK have mainly embraced diversity, and diversity is equally important to the governance of the organisations in our maritime sector. And of course, it's not simply about gender. Diversity is both visible and invisible. Visible diversity are the things that we cannot change readily, of course. Physical appearance, age, physical or intellectual disability. And invisible is about thinking styles, socio-economic level, values, personal belief systems, sexuality, education background, certain disabilities, and of course more. And to make an organisation stronger and fit for purpose, we need to ensure we have a wide range of both visible and invisible diversity. It gives us new perspectives, new ideas, and it enables evolution and continuation. So in looking at governance, we looked at your board diversity too. We did an analysis of 21 maritime welfare charities, and we did this all via information that was publicly available. So let's start with gender. At CEO level, you can see there 67% male, 33% female. This is very encouraging, and it's great to see that at least 3 new female chief executives were appointed in 2020. Seafarers Hospital Society, Sailor Society and Care Ashore. So welcome to you all, and great to see you shift the diversity balance of the sector so soundly. At chair level, however, gender diversity is less successful. And in fact, the one female chair of Greenwich Citizens Advice Bureau is not strictly a maritime welfare charity, it is a Citizens Advice Bureau. And if you look at trustee diversity, again, there is an imbalance. Have a new slide, please, thank you. We also looked at board size, and this is for benchmarking purposes only. We absolutely recognise that this will be different in different organisations, and it's natural that that's going to be the case, because it depends on the work of your organisation, the complexity of your organisation, structures, how many committees it needs, etc. But when do we all simply ask why or for what purpose? So our questions here and our analysis made us look at our own board, and this analysis might be useful for you to look at your board composition and consider what is right for you. New slide, please. Trustee boards and age. How old are your trustees? Our analysis reveals that we in the maritime sector are not far off wider sector averages. For example, the 2017 Charity Commission research published showed that 92% of trustees in England and Wales had an average of age of 55 to 64, and that rose to 65 to 74 in smaller charities. However, bearing in mind that young people make up 12% of Britain's population, is this well represented in your organisation? It is an issue in the wider charity sector, of course, but just bear in mind, obviously, that young people are a vital part of our society, offering skills, perspectives and an outlook that could give great value to charities and their boards. So again, we just offer this offer this up as part of our analysis. Terms of office, we've already gone through this. So just to say, in terms of office, it's really encouraging to see that 51% less than 5 years. So lots of new skills coming into the sector. 37% more than 5 years and less than 10 years. And then there's 12% more than 10 years. And that actually includes that 3% that are more than 20 years. Now, when we get to that aspect, obviously Charity Commission guidance is 3 periods of 3 years, 3 plus 3 plus 3. So again, look at your board composition and ask, is this helping diversity? Is this helping the performance of the organisation? It's just a reflection. It's just quite an interesting analysis that we made from the 21 maritime welfare sector. So in summary, no surprise really, we all know the sector quite well. Trustees are predominantly white men over 50. And there's no consistency, and nor should there be, in the maritime welfare sector on the right size of board. But again, we just raise this because it's something that you might wish to consider at board level. There are some positive surprises, as I've mentioned already. 33% of chief execs are now women. 70% of trustees are working full or part-time from our analysis, which is really encouraging. 17% of trustees are under 50. And we have some really strong, stable boards. 37% of trustees have served more than 5 years and less than 10 years. So again, it would be, if we can share this analysis with you, and it might be useful to take to your boards and get them to consider to see how they compare. So thank you very much for listening to all of us. And undoubtedly, you're going to have some questions about various aspects of what we've talked about today. So please do put the questions and answers in the chat if you haven't already. And I'm going to hand over now to Peter Buxton, who is chair of our Impact Committee, and he will look at your questions and address to whom he thinks it's the relevant, which one of us he thinks is most appropriate.
Thanks, Deborah. I've had a look through the chat. There's been a couple of people asking whether the slides can be made available. I'm sure that we can do that. Tina will post those out. Other than that, one other question just popped up. Do you use external support for your strategy work? Catherine, do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, sure. We have used external support for our strategy work. We've obviously wanted to keep the cost of developing the strategy as low as possible. I was fortunate that I had a lot of strategy development experience from my previous role, so I have brought some of that, but we have used, as we outlined on the slides, we used the DSC report, Theory of Change. The Theory of Change report from NCVO is one of those strategic tools, so we've really brought all that together to develop our implementation plan and to develop the themes or the outcomes that we want to achieve. And of course, we're very fortunate that we have some excellent talent in the staff team at Seafarers UK, but also some extremely experienced and knowledgeable people amongst our board of trustees. So it was a combination of developing it in-house, using existing experience and skill, but also taking on board the information that we got from various other strategic tools.
Thanks, Catherine. There's been a few comments around safety. Jeffrey Parfit offering to engage with people, as has David at Fishmish. If you want to scroll through the comments there, that would be useful, because we're very keen that we can set up synergies between people just using our best offices. You know, our role is not simply to give out money, it's to try and bring people together. Okay, we've got some stuff here, so let me scroll back. In terms of diversity, what happens to the data in relation to race, as many communities around the UK have many seafarers from the BAME communities? Deborah, can you take the thing on diversity, please, on race?
Yes, so Abdi, we did look at diversity of trustees actually, but it's very difficult to get. So we were actually looking, for example, at pictures on websites. So the diversity of trustees is, as we said, predominantly white. In terms of the diversity of seafarers, obviously we do know that there's a great diversity, but there is inconsistency on, or we are finding there's inconsistency in the way that some organisations collect data. But this is massively improving, particularly with those organisations that work internationally. But I think for those of you who are involved with Maritime UK's diversity programme, there's some really exciting work going on there. And I think we as a maritime welfare sector could absolutely get together to do more on this. And it's something I'd like to explore with all of you in terms of how can we do this and move forward? And can we set up a subgroup, a working group to look at this across the sector, for example?
Thanks, Deborah. Question on the split between our international work and our UK work and how the priorities are set. Deborah, it's probably one for you as well.
We don't have any set, we don't have any set pots, so to speak. So we have a total grants budget, and what we do is we do score the grants as we work through our assessments. But in terms of priorities and how we do that, we basically, at the beginning of the year, normally we sit down with trustees and agree what the areas are. We're obviously working now to our strategic themes, but there isn't a clear, we only have so much money to spend on international. It's very much needs-based, and we tend to want to be reactive to the needs because you guys are on the front line, you guys know what's needed out there. So you know, if you've got international work, then absolutely we're keen to hear about it. Our work last year dramatically increased in terms of international funding, and that was mainly because of our COVID grants and additional support that we gave, for example, to seafarer centres overseas. And we have been talking to other organisations about further international work. So again, you know, please pick up the phone and speak to us about it.
There's a specific question about the Relate service that's offered as to whether that's a UK only or if it's available internationally. I guess that would split into two parts as to whether it's available only for UK nationals or whether it's available to people worldwide if they're out on a ship somewhere out of UK waters. Deborah or Tina, you're going to take that one,
Yeah,
I think.
Peter, I can answer that.
Yeah, thanks to you.
So the Relate service is primarily for UK-based residents. So it is primarily UK. But if you know, we have considered other options and other differences. So if you're aware of somebody requiring relationship advice and they can commit to the time and you know, attend what is now the virtual appointments, then we could look at expanding it for an international seafarer if they're able to make that commitment. So if you're aware of that need, please do let us know, and we will explore what's possible with our colleagues at Relate.
And Tina, given that it's a virtual appointment now, is that appointment available if the person is out of the UK water on a ship somewhere else in the world? Do we know?
I understand that it is possible, you know, if they've got the IT able to do it, you know, if you've got the IT systems available, then, you know, you can have virtual appointments wherever you are. We do have a fairly, should we say, understandable arrangement with Relate about cancelled appointments, you know, particularly if people, you know, previously had a commitment to attend an appointment, but they find that, you know, they're having to be at sea or they've not got access to be able to the internet to be able to go to the appointment, then, you know, we have an agreement with Relate about how we handle those cancelled appointments. So we do try to recognise the unique circumstances of seafarers in the Relate service.
Okay, another question on diversity. About life experience, did we look at how life experience varies between people, not just on the protected characteristics, but how those people may have experienced life differently and therefore to draw their experience in, I guess is what David's looking at there. Deborah, do you want to grab that one?
Sorry, Peter, I was just reading the other questions and I wasn't really listening to that question. I apologise.
Nothing changes, Deborah.
I was just reading Luca's question, actually.
Yeah, okay. It's about life experience and diversity. Now, clearly, people could be of a similar age or a similar ethnicity or anything else and have very different life experiences. Did we look at how we could, or how one could draw different life experiences into the diversity mix?
No, our work on diversity in terms of the analysis of you know, governance was quite simple and based on the publicly available information. But in terms of diversity more generally, absolutely, that is something that we should, you know, I think we should all discuss, because in terms of some of the work that we're doing in diversity, it's clear that in terms of just simple things like monitoring and collecting and understanding, some organisations are doing really good things that it would really be valuable if you know, they were able to share ideas and good practices so that we could have an increase in the standard across the sector. That would be my comment. Tina or Catherine, do you want to make any further comments?
Just to echo what Deborah said, that our analysis of diversity by its very nature was incredibly simplistic. We were looking at what was publicly available. So unless we're at the stage of everybody agreeing that we're going to be reporting on the diversity of our boards, then, you know, that information simply isn't publicly available to the degree that we would like to. It may be that at some future point, you know, everyone may want to do more about reporting on the diversity of their boards, but I don't think we're at that stage yet.
And I guess it comes to when one is appointing trustees, you need to make sure that you've got a good mix of experience, so that you've got people with different specialties and viewpoints, to make sure you've got a proper mix of people there.
Yes, and also the other thing is obviously look at different places. So for those of you that attended the Trinity House conference, oh, I can't remember when it was now. Was it 2019? We looked at board diversity then, and we had you know, the presentation there. And there's been further information. And in terms of reaching out to younger people, for example, there's a very vibrant you know, university network that you can engage with, for example, if you wanted to get younger trustees. There's all sorts of different ways that you could share. If you wanted, if you yourself are a grant funder of individuals, you might want to get someone who has nothing to do with the charitable sector, but actually is a grant funder in the wider sector. And so, for example, there's organisations like Grant Funders Network that will advertise, you know, trustees vacancies in that area. So for us to be looking in different areas, not the traditional ones, not necessarily just shoulder tapping someone that we know to be a good egg, but actually thinking more broadly about how we can attract completely different trustees than we may normally come across in our everyday working lives.
Okay, clearly the diversity issue is hugely important, and there's been lots of useful comments on there. Thank you, Abdi, for that. There's also quite a long comment from Abdi about BAME Seafarers issues, really well made. I think there are no further questions I've picked up on here. My apologies if I've missed one, but please, if you do have any more question, will Seafarers UK need formal partnerships to be established, MOUs, partnership agreements, legal agreements between organisations for future collaborative funding submissions and allocations for social justice work? Don't think so, but Deborah. It's the last one from David Hammond.
I'm going to leave Tina to answer
Sorry,
that.
Tina.
Yeah, I think that's down to the organisations to make their arrangements. So if an organisation wants to enter into a formal contractual arrangement, then, you know,
No, Tina, between us and them, that's the question, is will we require formal partnerships to be established?
We don't require formal partnerships. If a partnership wants to come to us and ask for funding, then, you know, that's something that we can explore. Or if it's just one lead organisation that wants to come to us about a partnership that they're working on, then, you know, that's the way we would go. So I think, you know, what this would really require is the organisation to come to us, talk to us about the partnership work that they're doing, you know, and help us to understand that, and then we can make the decision, you know, for the grant or not. I think, you know, there may be times when, you know, we might want to do something more formally about, you know, your organisation and Seafarers UK are collaborating in partnership on a particular initiative or project, and that would be subject to a bit more of a formal arrangement and an agreement about terms and conditions, etc.
Okay, that if I haven't understood the question properly, or we haven't quite covered that, please get back to us on that and email with specific points. Same with any other questions that you come up later on after the webinar's finished. I think I'll draw the questions and answers to a close there. We're coming up to 11 o'clock. I want to thank everybody from the Seafarers side for putting all this together. Judging by the comments, you've all found it useful. So hopefully we can go forward from now on to be able to continue to support the seafarers that are out there. Catherine, did you want to say anything else just to finish up?
Thank you very much, Peter, and thank you to everybody who has attended this morning. I hope it does look as though it's been informative. There was quite a lot to take in there in terms of the changes that we want to implement and the way in which we work. So please come back to us if you think of questions that you have had a chance to ask during this session. And I think the real message from us is that we really enjoy working with you. We want to make sure that we're doing our absolute best for seafarers and for you as organisations. So we look forward to working with you and collaborating with you. And we hope you'll come on this journey with us to improve the services and support that we offer to seafarers. And finally, a really big thanks to our trustees who have been incredibly supportive of this change, and also to all the team at Seafarers UK. So thank you, everybody.